Thank you all very much for coming. So I will say, we've been doing some faculty staff surveys lately and decided to embed a couple questions about unit planning because I've heard some comments over time about unit planning and whether people like it, don't like it. So we asked a couple questions, and the feedback we were getting from some people, not everybody, was, I don't understand it. I think it's a waste of time. Like, I don't understand the purpose. I don't know what's expected of me. So we thought we'd put together a training. So there's 2 trainings. This is the first one. Sorry, this is kind of our practice run. Because we don't know exactly what questions you guys have, so we took a guess. So we're going to walk through. The next one's going to be great. So if you want to come to the next one too, it's going to be awesome. So Erin's recording for those that aren't going to be able to make it. But it looks like a lot of campuses here. So thank you again for coming. So first, you've seen this, and I'm going to blow it up a little bit. So Joanna sends this out on kind of the process. So we know that the new budget year begins July. You should be then kind of finalizing your data from the year before, kind of looking over how things went. That's the idea. So then in September, we start coming together for the closing the loop. We ask you to fill out a form. We ask you to do the 15-minute meetings. We want you to reflect on your data. And we're going to have those conversations about what are you going to need for the following year. It's not for this year, because we've already planned for this year. Mike has already submitted the budget, everything. Sorry about your luck. Unless it's something big. So then November, then Dawn in her area starts getting budgets and things together. So we've got to go through personnel, equipment, software, all these different things, justifications, all of that. Because HICA has to get a budget submitted to the county. So we look at enrollment projections, trying to figure out what's this going to look like next year in terms of tuition and needs and things like that. Then the past couple of years, we've asked you to submit your goals in February if you haven't already done so. So that's another piece that's gotten kind of confusing. Some people submit them all at once, and some people are like, I need more time to think about what my goals for the next year are going to be, even though I've already submitted my resource requests. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. We're going to try to get that back all into one process. This year we have some flexibility. If you haven't already thought about your goals, we're going to give you some time to submit them in the spring and yet this year. So then in March, there's a budget or a board retreat where they talk about what they think the budget's going to look like. And then finally in June, the board approves everything and we end the budget year. So when Joanna's sending out these emails saying, hey, you need to get your stuff in, and Dawn's like, hey, you need to get your stuff in, like all this stuff happening, there's key dates we're working around, and that's why. It's really important that we stay on target for these different things so we can get budgets submitted when they need to be submitted, get everybody's goals, be thinking about data, be thinking about making improvements. So there is a method to the madness behind unit planning. All right. And this is just a little more about some of the timelines. So program.
Is it your phone?
No. I'm not.
Oh my God, it won't
All right. See, this is why we're recording twice. No, I got it. All right. So we're going to get ready to start sending out those meeting invites. We've got a lot of people in the room. So Jen's going to be there, Heike is going to be there, Dawn's going to be there, Dr. Klauber's going to be there, I'm going to be there. So we've got to get a lot of people in the room for these meetings. So we're going to start figuring out schedules so we can start getting these 15-minute meetings scheduled. So just so you're aware. So then there's some stuff that happens. The executive officers are meeting with their people and talking in cabinet. Then we get to the meetings. And then, let's see, there's the self-service piece. We're looking at these enrollment projections probably around mid-November, trying to figure out, do we think enrollment's going to be up, down, where do we think it's going to be? Preparing those drafts, reviewing again, submitting. Dr. Klauber continues to meet with executive officers to talk about some of those big requests that seem to be submitted. second look at enrollment, goals form, gotta get those goals in, because those goals do go into the final document that the board sees. So Joanna's trying to get those cleaned up in time to get that submitted. We get a draft that goes to the board in May, finalized in June, and then there's just a note. Remember that budget and resource requests should be tied to strategic plans. Everything should speak to one another. So there's a process in terms of a flow. Everything should kind of make sense. Oh. So then we've had people say, I don't know what I should be talking about in my 15 minutes. Some people think it's too long, some people think it's too short. Like what should we do? So the best meetings, I don't know how Heike and Jen feel, but the best meetings, I think, are the ones where they provide a couple highlights, like what happened in the last year, you know, give us an idea. Data is great, of course I'm going to say that. Fact book is awesome, of course I'm going to say that. Particularly for the academic units, because when you come and say, my enrollment's 4,000 students, we're going to check you, because we don't have 4,000 students in one particular program. So, you know, making sure that you're leading with data, and then you should have justifications for the requests that you're sending in. So that's what we're kind of looking for. We want to know what happened, you know, what data do you have, what are you asking for? That's important because some people kind of come in and be like, everything's wonderful, and then it's almost your time up. And by the way, like really we want to know, like, what are you going to need? And what kind of big initiatives we have going on. Those are kind of some of the things that we're looking for. So, like, I don't know if you had anything you want to add.
Yeah, most definitely, because Kali mentioned academics, but you know, every office, you know, can provide some data, you know, like enrollment, how many students I served, you know, maybe there's then a software request, you know, employee request, you know, facilities, you know, would tell us, hey, how many, you know, cards did we get, how many times did something break down, I mean, there's a lot, you know. So kind of think about your data, you know, which we are also wanting to know for the accreditation, right? So the big assessment, so yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you all did great. But when I think, like, all right, who does a good job? Like, Eric will come in, he'll be like, look, this is what we did. Here's a couple things going on. I know I'm going to need trucks. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need officers. I'm going to need this. Like, he does a really nice job in that 15 minutes of providing data, providing justification for his needs, kind of give us an idea of what's going on. Like, he does a nice job with an overview. Like I said, you're all great. Nursing has an advantage because they're accredited programs, so they have all of their data like in line. They come in, they're like, here's what our results were of what percentage of students passed exams, things like that. And we think we're weak in this area, and we need the software to help us get to where we need to be. So, like I said, just going back to how you're going to back up what you're going to be asking for, and making sure we know about big things that are coming up, and making sure that you kind of brag about your department as well. Because Dr. Clauber really likes to hear about all the good things that happen, because he doesn't necessarily always get that filtered down. Okay. All right. So this year, the closing loop, we did this during COVID. I'm going to try this again because when we're all sitting around the table taking notes, it's going to be easier if it's all dumping in to a form rather than, Heiko taking notes on something that I printed out from the Word form. So we're going to try again going into a form that you're going to fill out this year. So we will send you a link. One of the required elements is unit name. You can't skip that. It won't go any further. And then all the questions that you've been asked before, plus a couple of new ones. So what goals did you assess? Data, again, we want to know that. What did it tell you? What changes are you going to make? Okay, then it's going to go in to some questions that hopefully will help finance. Okay, we've asked this before. Do you anticipate any budget savings? If I say yes, it's gonna ask you to explain. If I say no, it's gonna skip that one. So any new initiatives that you're gonna discuss that have budget implications, yes. Explain that. So Craig, we're gonna have them say whether or not they're gonna want software so that you can plan. So rather than Jen and Heike and I trying to take notes while people are talking, this will dump into an Excel sheet and I can send that to Craig and say, here's all the software that people said they want to request. Equipment. And then we're going to get into, Dawn, grant funds. Could this equipment be supported through grant funds? What grants? So I'm thinking, this isn't final, we can just talk about this, but this is where they would put, hey, this is eligible for Perkins funding. Yes.
So I would put some kind of statement like that, types of grants, because if we just say grants, they won't know what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
I would give a couple different examples of grants.
Excellent. And then Jen, here's where we have personnel, and then we will put, if you have absolute need that you think, we will have a form that you can go in, so we'll get that together and have all this in one place.
And it will be for new requests only this year. It won't be a reclassification form. It's only asking for new employees. So if you have a change in an area or something like that, that you need to request a new employee, the form will open up. It'll ask what you're looking for, what type of position you're looking to fill that, but we will not have any reclassification requests this year.
Then Donna and I talked about memberships, so if your memberships are changing, that way she can keep those kind of managed. All right, and then just as a catch-all, anything else? In case I missed something. Anything else you would like to add? Okay, so then I also talked about the goals. So just to keep everything together, we're going to ask that when you fill out the closing loop form this year, have your goals ready. If you don't, or if you want to make changes, we'll still take them in the spring like we have the last couple years. And then it's going to submit. And then I'll make sure that executive officers get a copy of what gets submitted so that everything can be kind of streamlined in terms of that. Are there any?
Wait a sec, I have a question. Can you go back on that last form you had? Was it goals that you're gonna submit for FY26, or did it say FY25 on there?
This one says, it should say 26.
Okay.
This one's, I copied and pasted.
Okay.
It's gonna be 26. I just copied the old form.
Okay.
So that's why it says 25 here.
Okay.
So that's what it's
All right.
going to reflect. Okay. So if you need help on at least these pieces, we're not gonna be able to help necessarily with the budgeting. But let us know if you need help writing your goals. They should be measurable. They should be important things that we're looking at. We can help to write your goals with you. Don't hesitate to reach out. Any questions? Right. So next time when I send out a survey, you're going to answer, yes, I understand.
So Carly, I feel like I don't know how I put up the can of worms, but I do feel like the goals, like they should not be our job description.
No.
Because that's what we do.
Mhm.
And that shouldn't be a goal. The goals should be something that is a new initiative, a new, something we're spearheading, something, correct? I
That
mean,
is correct. Yes.
And do you have any intention of suggesting a limited number of goals? I know some people will have like 10 goals. Well, that's pretty unrealistic when you think about a fiscal year. There's only 12 months in a year.
So those of you that have been around for a little while, it might have been 2 or 3 years ago, I reached out to everyone to discuss their goals and how to help make them a little more measurable. So since this is kind of dumping into Excel, we can look at that again. I would, 5 is usually my magic number for trying to keep it around that. But there's always special cases where,
Sure,
if
sure.
you have a large department, there might be multiple things going on. Yes, should be measurable, specific. timely, the whole smart, I'm not gonna go with smart E. But yes, so we can work again on goals, we can take a look at what people submit and kind of start honing those in as well. Any other questions?
Hey Carly, why 15 minutes?
Why 15 minutes?
So, a lot
So
of
that
us
we
come
don't lose
from-
our minds.
A lot of us come from past administration where unit planning could be an hour or 3 hours, depending on your department size. It
You know,
wasn't a
it-
one size fits all sandwich bag.
I wasn't here when the 15 minutes was set, but from experience in this for the last 5 years, I think 15 minutes is a great amount of time because it gives you enough time to get what you need across, people to ask questions, everything. But we have so many different departments that have to come through. It takes us like a month to get through all these because of schedules and things like that. So I don't know who chose it or why, but I thought it was a great idea. If you can't do it in 15 minutes, something's wrong.
So is it going to be 15 minutes for each cost center?
We're just gonna continue the way we've been operating. We're not gonna change.
I think that kind of goes back to Jack's point,
Yes.
because in the past, it's always been workforce solutions
Yep.
all together with all of the different cost centers that we have.
Oh.
So 15 minutes is a little bit of a stretch
Sure.
for us to get everything in there.
And if you need to schedule additional meetings outside, that's fine. But for this process, for unit planning and budgeting, the way that we're looking at budgets, and
Mhm.
this is very budget driven.
Sure, so then I would suggest that each cost center get 15 minutes.
I think, I don't know, didn't they get each 15 minutes? I don't know.
No.
I thought it was
Joanna?
scheduled an all day.
And you, when Dr. Altieri was here, we were there all day, which was
Oh,
way too
no.
long. Don't want that. But again, it's a little bit difficult when you're talking about personal enrichment or transportation,
Sure.
trades, and technology
Very different.
to have it all in 15 minutes. So,
That's a discussion.
yep.
But you have several cost centers under you, and each cost center does have 15 minutes, right?
Nope,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
or it hasn't in the past.
When I sent this email out to all call center managers, I wasn't thinking about grants and auxiliaries. So some of this process you do, but it's not this official format that we'll talk about. But it is good for you all to know this information just to kind of see what's going on at the college. And this is geared towards operating budget, not auxiliaries or grants or foundation, for example. So we kind of made some helpful tips here. We encourage you not to wait till the last minute to do these things because you might need data or any other reason. But at this time, only cost center managers can access and log in and make changes for the budget module. And that's not due to us, that's just colleague limitations right now. Hopefully they'll change that one day so that maybe admin staff can help as well. Or they probably still help, it's just you have to log in or something like that with them. It's really important not just to roll over your budget. So if, a lot of things change. So if you have $10,000 in your budget this year for whatever, think about when you're going through your budget, don't just be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna roll that over. It might be, a lot of things are going up in price, so it's just important to kind of be thorough and detailed and think through things. And at this time, because the current fiscal year 24 is not officially closed, the actuals that are provided in self-service for FY24 are not correct. So you would need to go into self-service and look at your own budget to actuals and don't use the number that is in the budget module. Like when you're trying to change numbers and things, that we'll show you, but it's not correct at this time until the fiscal year closes, because we're still in audit and doing a lot of that stuff. So. So we're going to pull up self-service and kind of show you how we you can filter things to get information that you want. We do recommend saving every so often because it does time out. If you get like an error or it's like acts like it's not gonna take what you're changing in there, it will. That most likely it's because it signed you out. So just keep that in mind. If you don't see an object code or like a line item that like office supplies, for example, just email both myself and Don, and we'll make sure we'll get that added for you. Oops. I don't know what just happened.
We're not in self-service anymore.
Oh, it logged us out. So, as an example, it logged you out. I don't know when we started, like what, 20 minutes ago or less? So it may help. If you have a lot to review, it might help. You can actually export it and then kind of make your changes there and then go back in. And the only thing is it doesn't always, like when you copy from Excel to self-service, it doesn't always do a great job. So, but at least you have your data so you don't have to start all over if you didn't save or something. Like you got down to the last one and then they logged you out or something like that. This thing doesn't work very good. Oh, probably goes outside.
We have a different password for doing this, and we always forget what it is.
We'll just hold with us 1 second here while we log back in.
Oh, maybe. So when you come in here every time, you can hide certain columns. Some of these columns are not very useful. So the little box on the left, you can hide. Did everyone know this, or am I telling you anything new?
I did, but if you hide it, how do you get it back if you accidentally?
The next time you log in, it's going to go back to the default. If your screen is like mine is not wide enough for all these columns, so I hide like lots of columns. I just find that's helpful.
And I think it depends on what you're doing too. Like for us, we'll hide certain ones that aren't useful to us, but maybe you guys, would be useful.
So over on the left-hand side, you can also do filters. So say you wanted to only look at like a certain object code. You can enter it on the left side, and then you will see it. Is that helpful?
And if you don't have any of these filters, we have this filtered, but if you're looking at your budget, you click your budget, it will show you everything that, relates to your budget. So in this case, we just have some filters on the left to kind of show you guys an example.
Another useful tip is, say you're at the end of your budget process and you're done completely, you can also export it to Excel. That will be very helpful because then when the budget comes out, then you're able to see your justifications. You're able to see what you actually requested. Make sense?
And also, like let's say you wanted to change printing and advertising. So the current working budget is $100. Let's say you want to change it by $10. You can change it here and it will do the math. It will tell you what percentage, and if you scroll over a little bit or hide columns, it will show you we're adding $10. So that'd be $110. You can, any of those numbers you change, it will do the other math for you if you need that information. Or, contracts sometimes, like, let's say they normally go up 5%. it's easy, just put in 5% and we'll.
So then that little piece of paper, like next to where you put 200, is that where we put the justification in?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're gonna, justifications are probably one of the most important things when you're doing this. And a lot of people do them. Some people just, put this is to cover all of our professional development, trying to think what, like accredited, no, what is it?
Like
Memberships, for
memberships is the
example.
big one. I know that Carly already mentioned it. Memberships, we have the appendix D in the plan and budget, so I need to have a clear-cut list of what your memberships are.
So for example, here, there's no justification. What is this $4,100 for? And it might be, well, this is the same thing we have every year. Well, it's hard for us to remember everyone's memberships and things like that. So if you put, okay, 2,000 is ABC and 2,000 is, whatever, and $100 is this, that's very easy for us to understand what makes that amount up. Yeah.
So how detailed should those be? Like, I have a line where I have like maybe 50 to 80 individual subscriptions for the library. Should I put each one in with its cost?
I would say yours is probably an outlier in this case.
Okay.
You can try.
You can try. It may, from what I understand, I don't
I
think
think there's a
there's
character limit
at some
Okay.
point, but if there isn't enough space and you could just email us.
Okay.
Say, hey, here's my spreadsheet. I didn't want to copy all this in here, or it didn't let me, or whatever.
Okay.
That's okay too. If we
So
have
what other questions do you have with this before we leave? Yes.
So just to clarify, you would like justification notes for every single item, regardless
If you
of
have an
whether it's...
increase or a decrease, that is very helpful.
Okay, what about if it's just the same?
If it's just the same, it would still be helpful just to know
Okay.
what makes it up, because we don't have prior years, we don't
Yeah.
always know what it was, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Or if maybe, it might even stay the same, but something you had come out and something went in at the same price, those kind of things. It would be, more notes here, the better. Within reason, it's just so we know what makes up that number. Especially, let's say you're asking for $1 million, then, okay, well, we're probably gonna have to cut some of this stuff. So, you could even say in here, hey, we've seen that before. I'm gonna prioritize this versus this, or 1, 2, 3, or whatever. That's also helpful. If it's a big ticket line item, if it's like office supplies, I don't think you need to worry about
Okay.
all that. But if it's a big line item, it would be helpful.
Thank you.
Any other
Yes,
questions?
because we really look at those justifications when we are trying to balance the budget. And obviously, more so, the big ticket items, but we are also, looking, it has been extremely helpful. And then we might come back and shoot you an email and say, hey, can you give us some more detailed information?
So you can't attach anything. Like I was thinking like what Kendra was saying for us, if we had a bunch, would it just be easier to say, please see attached, and then just have it as a list and email to you all so you have in case the justification doesn't fit in there?
So it's preferred that it be in here.
Right.
Because every time we export the budget, it's
Gotcha.
helpful. So if at all possible, put everything in there.
Okay.
Except for you, Kendra.
Yeah, and if it doesn't fit, then just let us know and send us that, and we'll try to. Maybe we can summarize it somehow or something to fit in, so we don't lose it.
Brandon, are we supposed to have the budget updated at the same time that we submit the closing the loop form? Are they supposed to coincide?
I don't think so.
No, you
Yeah, I'll be having an email coming out very soon, maybe even probably today, that will explain a lot of that more. But the closing loop, I guess, is not
That's separate.
kind of unrelated. I guess. There are similar time frames, but
There's information about the budget, but it's the timeline, you have a little extra time. It would be good to have a plan, but then they give you a little extra time usually before you have to submit your final budget.
Okay, thank you.
Here's just an example of a membership and how the memberships were listed and how they equal.
Yeah, like this is just an example of a decent job, 9870. I know it's hard to see, but all of these equal 9870. And we know exactly what is making up that number.
So
Just an example, but.
how do we know, like, for example, I'm just looking at some of the, there's a couple journals, like for education and things like that, that would be useful in Mary's area, but then, like, Alicia or somebody in my area might want to have it. How do we know if it's more cost effective to have, like, an institutional, or do we just request that you guys look at that?
It would be great if you could do that homework
Okay.
to see if that would be cost effective. Just a reminder, all memberships are located in the plan and budget, Appendix D. Does anybody use this?
I have it up right now, that's why I was in it.
Yeah.
And we have to do it single year, right? Even though it's cheaper to do multi-year, you just want the single years in there, correct?
That's a Brandon question or a David question.
Because, like, for sometimes it's, like, HAPS might be $125 a year, or you can get it 3 years for like $200. So to me, it's like, but then
So if you can fit that in justification, just say, I put in the single year rate, but we can save money doing this, and then that can kind of
okay.
It depends
be
on how much,
decided.
it depends on how much we're saving, because a lot of times the accounting for it and over multiple years and is trying to keep that straight is not worth it. But if it's a significant savings, we run into the same thing with Craig and IT, but for the most part, just because of the tens of thousands of dollars, it is worth it, so we deal with it.
Oh, so if it's like
But, if you're gonna
$25.
save $25, then it might not be.
Okay.
Because there's, for auditing in the back end, there's a lot of things that relate to those multi-year software and all that recently changed the last couple of years, and it's a headache for David a lot of times, so specifically. So, yeah.
I'm asking because this has shifted over the years, but now when there are budgets for like memberships, licensing fees, software, all that comes out of the department and not the executive officer, correct?
Right,
Correct.
that's correct. It used to be.
So
the other
there's
way.
no reason why the executive officer budget should have anything outside of what they're actually.
Yeah, like for you, for example, it should just have yours, and then your direct reports, they would have theirs in their call center.
Thank you.
If they have a call center, obviously, but most of them do, I think.
A useful hint, when you're signing up for memberships, if at all possible, July 1 to June 30th is perfect.
And a lot of them will change it for you, not all of them, but it would make it a lot easier. We'll talk about prepaids later. But if you can get them to line up with our fiscal year, that's going to make everyone's life a lot simpler. So just an FYI. Did anyone have any questions about like the justification notes in self-service?
Oh, really?
It must be boring. No. So what, all that self-service, all this stuff that you guys put into self-service, basically helps us to create this book, this annual plan and budget that a lot of people use. The whole process takes about 10 months, so it's not, you guys maybe, your part only takes maybe, let's say, a month or whatever, but the whole process, it takes a while to go through it all. And it's not technically officially approved by the board until, June, basically right before July. So we don't also always have the answers ahead of time. Unfortunately, that's just how it is sometimes. But yeah, so what you guys are doing directly basically goes into here at the end of it. So it's really important. So we could probably have a whole little training on prepaids. I'm just going to briefly talk about it, just so you guys have an understanding. So software and memberships is usually what this is, or maintenance contracts sometimes. If it crosses 2 fiscal years, that would need to be prorated. It's hit in 2 years instead of just 1. So for example, let's say a membership for your department is January 25 to December 25. So it's an annual year. that doesn't line up with our fiscal year. This is where we say, hey, if you can contact them and say, make it our fiscal year, sometimes they will. But in this case, let's say they aren't able to, the total amount for the year is $2,000, but only really 50% of that is going to hit FY25, and the other 50% will hit FY26. So we're going to pay the full $2,000 now. This is kind of getting to Lori's example. Maybe there's a special discount because we're doing this or whatever. But really, with prepays, what we would do is 1,000 would hit your budget in FY25, and the other 1,000, we have a process that will catch that, divide it up, and put it into, to split that up into 2 fiscal years. Now, I can teach you all how to do that. There's a lot of people that do know how to do it. There's some that don't, that I've been slowly trying to teach here and there. But the good news is finance has to look at all this, and you know, if you missed it, we'll probably catch it. But anyone, you know, proactive is always a good thing. So that, it gets kind of confusing for people. Is there any questions about that? Like a prepaid charge? Like paying ahead basically is what we're doing. And it's outside of our fiscal year. For example, this might be 5-year. Let's say it's a 5-year contract, and you're gonna have let's say it's $5,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, you know, each fiscal year. And we have a nice spreadsheet. Mason in our office does a lot of that and works with David. So basically, July 1st of next year or sometime around that time, Mason will put $1,000 hitting your budget for that line item. So just keep that in mind when you're budgeting. We want you to put the $2,000 so we know what the full charge is coming out, but it's going to basically be under $1,000 in your budget at the end of the year for FY25 and over in FY26 because the other 1,000. Well, actually, it would be under in FY25 and I guess, yeah, it would be over in FY26, right, David?
It should offset.
It should, yeah, you're,
It's gonna be equal,
if
right?
it's $2,000, the cost for annual, you're gonna budget $2,000 for the year. And that's what's gonna hit. When you pay it in January, 1,000 of that expense is gonna hit 25, 1,000 is gonna hit prepaids, which will then get reversed and hit 26. But then the following year in January, you're gonna pay it again, supposedly. If this is something that you have every year, and you're gonna have 1,000 hit then. So if it's $2,000 per year, your budget should be $2,000.
Yeah, it gets a little confusing, but that's just kind of a summary of that. And if you have any questions about any of this, you know, feel free to reach out to me or Don or both of us, and we'll help walk you through it.
We're happy to come to your office if you
Yes.
need assistance with it. Any
questions?
questions? You guys are really quiet.
Even Norman's quiet.
I was gonna say, we get a prize if we save you the most money.
Well, that's a good point. Like, if you can save money, you know, that's a great thing to do as well. You know, a lot of things are going up in price, but if there's any area that, you know, you can save for the college and for all of us, that's also a great point to point out. Or if you need it, you got an expense that's going to be expensive, and you can be like, look, I can help pay for some of that with this. That's also a great thing to do. So we can keep that budget as lean as possible. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And I'll be sending this out soon, by the way. The PowerPoint, and we're also gonna pick which recording we like better, so we'll send that out as well.
So kind of going along like with Christine, like we have the STEM Fest coming up, and a lot of times we use stuff like out of our instructional supply. Is there a different thing that we should put in for like promotional or campus activities like that that we budget specifically for? Because it's kind of like the open, like we usually, she has some money, but then we were paying for stuff to buy, like if we had to buy like stuff to make little science kits or something. So is that something that should still be instructional supplies, or should that come out of something like promotional marketing?
Maybe like printing advertising
Or, like in some budgets, I think in Beth's budget, she has a special line.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because
Yeah.
right now we've been
Let's look
taking it
into
out of
that.
our stuff, and I
Yeah,
just
let's look
didn't.
into that. Maybe
Maybe
we
we
can have
can
an
find
object
you.
code just for the STEM Fest.
Okay.
all
Okay.
that kind of stuff, yeah. I'm sure you guys will think of questions as you're going, and you can always reach out to us. And just start working on it. Or maybe you already are. I don't know.